Are you looking for the perfect rehydration drink to support your active lifestyle? Well, my friends, look no further than Hoist. Hoist is there for you whether you're going to use it pre-workout, in the middle of your workout in between sets, after workout, maybe if you're traveling, if you feel that dehydration headache sneaking up on you, or maybe if you just had a late night the night before and you need to reset and get back after it. With 3 times the electrolytes of traditional sports drinks with half the sugar and no high fructose corn syrup, no artificial preservatives, sweeteners, or dyes, Hoist is BPA free, it's kosher, and most importantly, it's made in the USA, baby. We all use Hoist, and I can't speak highly of it enough. Whether I'm doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, I'm out doing tactical operations, or I'm in the gym trying to make sure that I'm harder to kill, Hoist is always there to support me. With 5 delicious flavors you can pick up at your local grocery store or gas station. I love the dragon fruit, but you can try the orange, watermelon, peach mango, or strawberry lemonade. Hoist knows that you don't do normal things, and you might be out in the wilderness on a hunt, or you might be on a long ruck. Well, they hear you, and they've also got 3 delicious powder packs that you can mix in water anytime you want it. Peach mango, grape, and that fruit punch is that hitter for those packets. So go check them out. If you need IV level hydration for your normal every day-to-day activity, or if you're trying to get after it, working 2 workouts a day, Hoist is there to support you. Go check them out.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Ones Ready podcast. You're in the team room. I can't actually believe it, but Aaron and Trent are in the same room, so it's a little weird. I'm working through it right now. I'll get over it. The more important thing, though, is that we have a pretty amazing guest today. And I'm actually shocked that we were able to get him on. We have Chief Mike Lampe. And if you've never heard of him, well, you're wrong, because you need to get into the history books about what combat control, pararescue, and what is now SR is all about and where we came from. Chief Lampe, appreciate you joining us. I know, we are not in the habit of really telling our story, but I mean, you were one of the OGs or the original guys to actually do this kind of stuff from all the way in Vietnam. So really appreciate you joining us.
My pleasure, guys.
So since we're talking about like from the beginning, and I mean, you have an incredible career, have been recognized by SOCOM for everything that you've done for not just, combat control and the aspect war career fields, but all of SOCOM. So, I mean, this would be a book if we really wanted to do it, but if you don't mind, kind of, I know that you didn't originally come in as a combat controller. You had actually cross-trained. So from your time starting as a combat controller, if you don't mind kind of dipping your toes into the history books.
Yeah, you're right. I didn't come into the Air Force originally as a combat controller. Actually, originally I was drafted in the Army right out of high school in '68. And I figured out how to navigate the bureaucracy and got myself into the Air Force versus going to basic training. I think at that time in '68 was at Fort Lewis in the fall, the winter of '68, and got into delayed enlistment plan and ended up at Lackland. I think it was in April '69, and went through basic training. And then, of course, back then you didn't have much choices. They basically filled the void of the career fields that needed people. And I've, pretty much most of my basic training class either went to the Air Police at that time and administrative and personnel. And there was a few outliers going to different career fields. And so, I went to Keesler Air Force Base, did my admin tech school there, experienced Hurricane Camille while I was there, which delayed the process of getting through school. And then I got reassigned to Clark Air Base, the Philippines. And there I got assigned to what was then called the CBPO, the Consolidated Base Personnel Office. And I was in a administrative pool, about 9 of us, and we did everything, from typing correspondence, to updating manuals, regulations, doing distribution runs, managing the mobility lines, etc. And then for some reason, I was fortunate or unfortunate. I used to do the distribution run over to the base commander's office from CBPO, and the sergeant major at that time, a guy named Sergeant Major Savala, which was related to Terry Savala, the actor.
The actor? That's fantastic.
Yeah. And he was a crew cut. He was a former Army infantryman, and actually had 2 combat jump stars, combat infantry badge, a couple Purple Hearts, and a Bronze Star. So I didn't get a vote. I got reassigned there, and I worked for him. And of course, during that time frame, I started looking at other options in the Air Force. Not that the admin career field was a bad career field. Don't get me wrong. But I wanted to do something else, because I grew up in Washington State, over in a place called Little Silverdale, Washington, not much littler anymore. And my dad was a logger and my mom was a nurse's aide. So I spent most of my childhood out in the woods with my dad. So I just kind of didn't necessarily enjoy the office environment, if you know what I mean. And so I kept looking through different options. And then there was a article in the Airman's Magazine that had a article in there on pararescue. And so I looked into trying to cross train into pararescue, but because I wore glasses and I didn't have 20/20 vision, I got opted out of that. And then I came across what was called the Air Commando or the Jungle Gym program when I'm digging through all these regulations, manuals, as I call them. And so I applied for the Air Commando program or the Jungle Gym program, thinking, I'm going to get assigned, I'm going to go to jump school, et cetera, et cetera. So the sergeant major there, the base sergeant major, assisted me along with the vice base commander, a gentleman called Colonel Bobbitt. And he'd been a previous, I think, a B-25 bomber pilot, had been shot down and captured and spent time in the German POW camp. So I had some interesting early mentors, per se, that kind of helped me through the bureaucracy. Well, after my tour of duty was up in the Philippines, I got reassigned to Hurlburt for Special Operations Wing. So my, sponsor, picked me up at the little airport there at Fort Walton Beach that was shared by Eglin, and which I assume is still shared by Eglin Air Force Base. And, I started talking, hey, when am I going to go to jump school? When's this going to happen? And the guy looked at me and says, what do you guys smoke over there in the Philippines? And I said, what? I'm sitting there looking. I said, what do you mean? I signed up to be an air commando, when I'm cool. No, you're going to the 438th Combat Support Squadron, and you're going to be working for a guy named Colonel Allen, who's the comptroller for the whole wing, and you'll be his admin guy, and you've got oodles of safes to get squared away. And you talk about a sticker shock, I'm sitting there scratching my head. So I show up, I report to Colonel Allen, and he's right. There was like 10 safes just overflowing with, I guess, financial paperwork that hadn't been, taken care of in the appropriate way. And he just turned to, that's your job for the next 6 months, Airman Lampe. I think I was an airman first at the time. And I explained to him, why I was here. He says, yeah, I understand. But he says the Jungle Gym program, the Air Commando thing's kind of been disbanded. And so you're here as my admin assistant. You come highly recommended from the the base commander at Philippines, and we're happy to have you on board. Now get to work.
Welcome.
So,
You're actually behind Airman Lampe. So why don't you? Would you like to start now, or you need some water?
Yeah, exactly. And so I said, okay, I'm not taking no for an answer. And I guess I was kind of a, a little rough around the edges, probably a lot. So I marched up to CBPO, and CBPO at the time had a reception desk, that you couldn't get past that reception desk to go to anywhere in the CBPO. That was like the gatekeeper.
Yeah.
And we had this young lady there, and I walked in, and of course smoking was allowed that time. And so I'm trying to explain my dilemma and my disappointment. And, she's sitting there smoking and blowing smoke in my face, and
that's wild, Chief. I just got to say, like, I love hearing, I love hearing these historical things, but specifically for this, like, I can picture this perfectly in my head, like some woman that does not want to help you, and is just like, what do you want, kid?
Yeah. Exactly. So what happened during that time frame? The chief of CBO, Davis, I think was his name, heard portion of it. He took me off the side and he say, "Hey, Airman Lampe, why don't we take a ride?" So he took me over to the First Sal Combat Control Team. The chief over there, or the senior enlisted guy at the time, was a Beverly McRae. Showed me around, told me what combat control did, and then he and Chief Davis, along with Chief Howe, helped put my package together, and then they sent me TDY to Fort Bragg to support a exercise called Exotic Dancer, and ended up working.
Okay, now hold on. You have such a remarkable career, Chief, that I saw things like, and we really want to talk about those things later, but I'm gonna have to call you. I think you're lying to us. Was it really called Exotic Dancer?
Yes.
That is the best exercise name I've ever heard. We have terrible exercise names now. Everything is, red flag this and, teak iron that. And you got to go to an exercise called Exotic Dancer. That's fantastic.
Yeah. And of course, the clubs used to have go-go dancers and things like that,
Make the Air Force great again. Continue, Chief.
So what's interesting is I was up there for 6 weeks. I worked for a guy named Henry Tillman, SF guy, who actually eventually became, I think, one of the original Delta Force guys. And I worked for him, and he kind of heard my story, and he told me, okay, this is what you're going to have to do to prepare to go to jump school, et cetera, et cetera. So he mentored me up there. Of course, I had the late shift, so like 2 o'clock, midnight, I'd go do my PT. And he took me out, taught me how to rappel, took me on a river crossing, et cetera. Fast forward, I come back from Exotic Dancer. Colonel Allen and Miss Brown, his secretary, hand me orders. I've been reassigned to the First Sal CCT. So I go, I said, hey, I was jumping up and down with joy, and of course they weren't real happy. But so then I show up over immediately. I grab all my stuff and head to the over on the flight line where the First Sal wing, or no, Easton Hangar is where they were at the time. And I reported in, and the guy I reported to is Jim Charvet, Mike Charvet's father.
Oh, wow. That is great. I worked with CT. That's crazy.
Yeah. And so he was my training guy. Of course, back then, we didn't have a pipeline like we have today. There was no formal pipeline. And so Jim, Sergeant Charvet, was responsible of working with CBPO and the different aspects to get individuals like me that were cross-training schools. And so Jim fortunately got me a slot to jump school. I think it was the June of '71 when I went to jump school. And every time you completed school, you came back, turned in your certificate. And if you were fortunate, he had a slot for the next school. So it kind of went like that. So I went to jump school, came back. He handed me orders to air traffic control school at Keesler. And that's where Wayne Norad and I linked up. We were both cross trainees. He was a BB stacker, as he calls himself, and I was a, I can't say it on the podcast, but I was.
You can say whatever you want, Chief. Let me tell you. The old joke about if a tree falls in the forest, nobody's there. Does anybody hear it? Nobody listens to this anyway. So you just say whatever you want. You can.
Okay.
You there?
Yeah.
I'm kidding.
Well, back then we called ourselves titless WAPs. So you had a BB stacker and a titless WAP going through cross training together, and then came back out of air traffic control school, and then got orders to go to combat control school at Little Rock, Arkansas. And combat control school then, there's no comparison to what the career field does in school today compared to what I went through. Not that they didn't focus on core tasks like, LZs, DZs, extraction zones at that time, LAPes and limited weather observation, long range communication, with their HF sets. That was our core. The PT program, maybe we ran 1.5 miles max and did a few exercises. Not the regiment that you gentlemen went through or what you're familiar with. And, it wasn't necessarily physically demanding in that case. Not that the field portion wasn't long and arduous. It's just that 6 weeks we were in school. We spent a lot of time, we had to become rigger qualified at that time. So, we had to, learn how to pack our main parachute, our reserve parachute. We had what was called the MD-28 generators. We had to learn how to maintain that. Then back then we had the Mark, was it 107, if I recall correctly? That eventually came to Mark 108, the communications Jeep, the M15 Jeep. So we spent a ton of time in combat control on those core tasks I call, obviously LZ, DZ, EZs, and limited weather observation. In fact, at that time, they had a combat weather individual assigned that taught limited weather observation to us. And then
Trent got very excited, Chief. He was like, I knew it. Weather shows up. I got it. He's not a weather guy. He doesn't forecast, but hey, there it is.
Not anymore.
Yeah. And a guy, I think of the Staff Sergeant Curry was the weather guy, and he did a hell of a job. And I learned a lot about limited weather observations and for the career field at that time, when you look at what the career field was doing in Southeast Asia and what it did prior to that, we were good at our core task. We never went much away from what I call, air to ground interface or air operations. And also, Halo and Scuba was not part of the program back then. Certain teams had Scuba qualified people, certain teams had Halo type qualified people. Now, Hurlburt, the first Sal, had both. They had Halo guys and they had Scuba guys, but it wasn't a requirement. If you wanted to be Halo qualified, then, they would try to get you to Halo school. But back then, when I got back out of combat control, they said, you want to be Halo qualified? And I said, sure. Okay.
Yeah. Why not?
Yeah. Why not?
Sounds great.
Yeah. And so there was no wind tunnel. There was no, what you call it. Okay. This is how you do a delta. Yeah. They put you on the parachute table. Okay. This is how you do a delta to stabilize. And this is how you clear and pull. Okay. You got that? Okay. Got it. Okay.
Okay. Here's the plane.
Yeah. Exactly.
Time to go. Looks like you got it.
I'm not bullshitting. Excuse my English. And I think my two instructors, a guy named Pete Larkin and Johnny Hall, if I recall correctly, said, okay, put your orange jumpsuit on. Here, we'll put you up. And it was like a Dash 12, which was a pull riser type parachute. And we walk out, we climb on a C-47. They take off, they fly out to field 6, 10,000 feet. And, lo and behold, I get shoved out the thing and I'm tumbling, like a rock. And oh yeah, the Delta. I got to do the Delta. Okay. And,
Nice.
And stabilized. And then, of course, back then they didn't have, on this parachute, they didn't have regular rip cords. They had like a T-handle. And that thing was wedged in, with a sledgehammer. And so, every time, I saw guys, would take their T-handle and put a rubber band around it. And I wasn't smart enough to pick up on that in the first jump. And so when I finally opened up, I was fairly low to the ground. We didn't have timers back then. But
oh my God, Chief, you had the rest of your life to figure it out. Did you live from that jump? I guess I should ask.
I'm puckering up just listening to this.
I know my heart rate is 195 beats per minute. Solid.
Yeah. So I finally got that T-handle out of the socket. And then I said, that's the last time I'm putting that thing in the socket. I'll put a rubber band around it so I can pull. Because, when you're pulling, I went head down. And then you can imagine what the head down opening was like. So, and then, just to get off the halo, my sixth or seventh jump, true story. We're going halo, got an MC-130 coming in. I can't remember where it came from. And we're going to do a night 20 grander. Okay. This is my seventh jump. I haven't figured out how to completely stable out after exiting the aircraft other than go to the Delta. So,
Chief, you were falling through the sky just like those safes at your first duty assignment that you were supposed to square away. That was you. Like you went from fixing the safes to falling like a greasy safe. Congratulations.
Yeah. So here we go. We get, they get the oxygen console on. You got, now they go through, okay, this is how your oxygen mask. Okay. I think it was Pete Larkin. Okay, that looks good, Sergeant Lampe. That's sealed. Okay, this is your bailout bottle. At 2 minutes, we're going to give you a signal. You pull this thing, and then you're going to get a rush of air. And then 2 minutes later, we're going to go off the ramp at 20K. You're going to fall for 90 seconds, and then you open up your parachute. Got it? Yes, Sergeant.
Sure. Yeah, cool. So I'm just going to fall through the sky and then hopefully not die. Yeah, tracking. Let's go. Lucky number 7, baby.
Yeah. And so now, we're at Pino drop zone. We're flying at 20 grand. There's kind of lightning, thunderstorms all around. So they open up the ramp, and the sky just brightens up with the lightning activity. And, and I'm sitting here, saying my prayers and God, I hope they cancel this damn jump. Jesus, And the next thing I know, we get the 2 minute warning. Okay, activate the bailout bottle. Everybody lines up, do their final check. And so we walk to the ramp, and I'm looking at the ramp and the lightning, brighten up the sky, the airplane's bouncing around. And so we get the green light to go. And true story, I come up to the ramp. Instead of jumping off, I squat and I turn around and push myself off the ramp. No, I don't know why. Don't ask me why. They rode me like a dirt bike for months. Yeah, Lampe the squat loop.
Oh no, that's the best part about being on the teams, and I'm so glad that this is. We come from a proud heritage, and obviously we stand on the shoulder of giants, but I'm so glad to know that you had friends that were good enough friends that would make fun of you for almost dying for months and months at a time, because we carry that proud tradition today.
And so once I finished that training, I don't know, I ended up with 15, 16 jumps, and it's okay, you're Halo qualified, you survived, good job. Next thing I
know, you're alive. Here are your wings. Congratulations. Now go to your next school.
Yeah, and then the next thing, Jimmy Charvette walks up and says, hey, I got a slot to survival school up in Fairchild. You want to go? I said, is that the next step? And back then, being phase 3 combat qualified. And he says, yep. And of course, now Chief Howell's the chief at the Jimmy Howell's, or not Jimmy, but Billy Howell's father is the chief at the organization, and they had a TDY to Southeast Asia in support of a project called Project 404, and it was in Laos. And I didn't know diddly. I just heard guys talking about, et cetera, et cetera. I kept walking in, telling Jimmy Charvet, "Hey, I want to go on 404. You're not combat ready. You don't have the experience." And so then I go to Chief Al and say, "Chief, I'm a volunteer to go to Laos." And he says, "You're not combat ready. You're not qualified." I said, "Okay."
But I want to.
Yeah, but I want to. But that's the thing. Like, but I mean, can you just let me go, or is this not a thing? Or
yeah. And so I said, "Well, just put it on the record. I'm a volunteer." So, I go off to Fairchild, do my thing at Fairchild, come back, and I think when did they grab? I came back like on a Thursday night or Friday, and I walk in. I give my certificate for completing SB 80, and Jimmy Charvet says, "Can you swim?"
this is not going to end well for you. Listen,
No.
if I've learned anything from this story, Chief, this is not going to go well.
So, so I said, "Yeah." My mom and dad sent me to YMCA swimming classes, what they could afford, and I got to the fish standard. There's like minnow and fish, dolphin.
But you didn't get to like dolphin or shark. Oh no.
No. I said, "I'm a fish." He says, "Okay," and he says, Ernie Shep. I'm trying to think. It was Pete Larkin, Johnny Hall, and a 304. I want to say first name was Ernie. Said, "Okay, this afternoon," it was Friday afternoon now, says they're going to take you to Defuniak Springs and give you an orientation because we've got a slot to go to the underwater swimmer school at Key West, which was at that time run by the SEAL program or SEALs. I said, "Okay." I says, "That helped me get combat ready, combat." Yep. Okay, I'm in. So go out to Defuniak Springs, and they got the twin 72s. They got double hose regulators and stuff. And they said, "Okay, you know how to swim, right?" "Yep, I know how to swim." "Okay."
I'm a fish.
Yeah, I'm a fish. Come on. What's wrong with you guys?
Do you guys not know what the YMCA swim program is? All right,
Yeah.
Thanks, underwater SEAL teams. Okay.
Yeah. YMCA actually ran the first pre-dive program.
The first pre-dive, yeah. The first pre-dive.
And so, okay, so Defuniak Springs, the water is just cold as hell. They got wetsuits, but me, I got UDT shorts and a t-shirt. And I think, it's end of April, end of April. And it's still a bit chilly in the springs that don't warm up real good. And so I'm in there and they're showing me how to breathe through a double hose regulator. And then next thing, okay, now this is how you buddy breathe. Okay, boom, boom, and you hand it back. So we went through the buddy breathing thing. And then they did a little, if your mask gets full of water, okay, this is how you clear your mask, okay? And then they did they took me down, I don't know, about 30 feet in the springs. And then, talked about, hey, you got to constantly exhale as you're, coming up, and okay, I can do that. I'm exhaling all right. I'm breathing hard.
Chief, can I pause you there? So you went from literally just being able to swim, and the way that they got you ready for the dive school is that they took you out and they dove you to 30 feet in freezing water and showed you how to buddy breathe?
Yep.
Okay, I'm just making sure, because there are some people in our circles right now that are complaining about having to wear their blues during the week, and I just want to frame a reference for what's really hard in your pipeline. You know what I mean? These kids have to wear a different outfit to work, and they're not really happy about it. And they took you to a 45-degree spring and dove you on a double hose regulator as an intro to going to Key West. Okay, cool. Continue. Thanks. Sorry.
Yeah. And so went down there, I learned how to, go up, breathe perfectly. And then they took me to kind of the shallow part of the springs, as where you walk into the springs, and did a little pool harassment. They yanked the regulator out, tied it up in knots behind the manifold, and then see if I could figure out how to, untangle it to get my air back. I'm not saying I basically graduated that phase of pre-scuba very well, but I didn't drown.
None of us did. No.
Yeah.
They call you a combat diver though, Chief.
Yeah. And so, so we're done. I mean, maybe an hour, maybe two, maybe it was 3. Okay. And then we stop along the way and we get oysters on the half shell for 50 cents and a couple beers. And I get back, put the equipment away. And then on the parachute table, there's an envelope there, Sergeant Lampe. And so I open it up and it's my orders and my plane ticket to leave on Sunday to go to Key West.
Oh, cool.
So,
well, at least you didn't have to wait a whole long time.
I'm actually going to call the training wing and tell them that a 1-day pre-dive orientation is the solution.
Historically, it
pipeline
works.
problems. Yeah.
You can't tell me it doesn't.
yeah. So I, now I should, I fly down to Key West, I show up and the underwater swimming school's there, and they've got this big shark that sits there in front of the entrance with a diver holding onto the fin. So I walk in and there was, not a master chief, not a senior chief. I can't recall what rank the SEAL was, guy named Sweezy, who had quite a glorious combat history in Vietnam. Supposedly, he had the most hand kills of any SEAL in Vietnam. So I report into him and I say, "Sir, I'm reporting for boom." That was the first mistake. Yeah. And so he says, "Do I look like an officer?" I said, "No." He says, "That's right. I work for a living, and I keep the officers out of trouble and pointing in the right direction. So since you don't know the difference, I want you to take your airman ass outside, climb up on that shark, and sit there until I tell you you can get down."
Perfect.
So,
all right, Sweezy.
yeah, yes, sir. And so, well, guess who shows up while I'm sitting on the boom? The PJ class, who now has been in what we call indoctrination for 12 weeks. They had quite a program. Guy named Mike Long, Mike Brown, guys that stick in my mind. They show up and they're studs. They're they're in great shape. They've been at Indoc for 12 weeks, preparing for this day. So eventually I get down and, boom. And, first day, the pararescuemen, no disrespect to the pararescuemen, started just basically giving the SEALs a hard time.
No, that's also a part of our history. We are terrible to be around. Great hair, awful in any sort of group environment. No, that's also good.
Yeah. And so, they're basically, and these are young. I mean, these guys could run like gazelles and they could do push-ups until the sun never came down. And they were just studs. The pipeline put those guys in excellent shape. And so you got a cross training like me. There was another combat controller that came from Alaska. I think his name was Stanfield. And then we had a couple coasties. And of course, these guys are, the SEALs are taking us a nice, 3-mile run down along the water and boom, what a good pace, that everybody boom. And of course, the PJs are running out ahead of the SEAL instructor, egging them on.
Damn Jay. Dude, I know. I'm sorry, Chief. I'd like to apologize on behalf of the entire career field from 1966 forward. We can't be trusted. It's just a thing.
Yeah. And so I think we got back up, and then of course now we're on the football field at PT. Now the instructors are in control. Now the pararescuemen, like I said, superb shape. You know, the rest of us who hadn't been 12 weeks preparing for this event, we're having some real challenges keeping up with the flutter kicks and the push-ups and the burpees and all that. And so we finally got released and went back to the barracks, and I think it was Mike Long. I said, Mike, hey, think about us. I mean, you guys, I got it. But, a guy named McDonald, he was a coastie, said, man, you're going to kill this guy. Let's stay within the parameters, and, of course, that went on unheeded. And so that just continued day after day until we got to pool harassment. And pool harassment, they turn your back to the pool. And I had a swim buddy that said, hey, I'm PADI qualified. You don't have to worry. I'm wondering, can I do this? And so the first group went in, and now it's SEAL's revenge. All the troops are down there holding on to their buddy. And I swear every instructor that was assigned to that school must have been on the first wave of pool harassment, and they just raked, did a number on these guys. And there's got a couple guys come up, I can't breathe, boom, boom. Hey, you think they let them out of the pool? Hell no, down. And so that went on, and it became my turn to go in with my swim buddy. And, he's saying, hey, relax, Mike, I got it. I can hold my breath for 2 minutes. You just hang in there. I'll give you my regulator. Boom. And we got hit by probably 3 or 4 instructors. And, I got my double hose regulator wrapped around my neck in the manifold. And the next thing I know, my swim buddy who can hold his breath 2 minutes is nowhere to be found.
It's a classic story.
So I'm on the bottom of the pool struggling with that. And, I refused to go up, and eventually I probably am turning white, purple, whatever you turn, because I couldn't hold the breath. But finally the instructor came down, put me up. Next thing, when I finally get to the surface, there's my swim buddy. He's hanging onto the stairs, pretty much, yelling, I quit. And I swam over and said, what happened to the 2 minutes you could hold your breath? Yeah,
I love it in the worst time for him. Like, he is no kidding, like quitting an event. He is terrified, and you chose that time to swim over to him and be like, "Oh, what happened to the 2 minutes, big guy?"
Yeah. What an asshole I was.
That's how we knew you made. The selections are remarkably similar, Chief. That's one of the things that we look for. There's normally 5 attributes. The 6th is, are you an asshole? And that's basically it.
Yeah.
It's the only reason I made it through INDOC.
And so now I go up and sit down, and I don't know how many got eliminated in the first wave. And now they give me another swim buddy. Okay. And I think he was a coastie, if I recall. So here we go. We go back into the pool again. And it's almost like a snapshot or of what just took place previously. So there I'm at the bottom of the pool again. I'm not coming up, but got my double hose regulator wrapped around my neck, and I can't get the mouthpiece. Next thing I know, the SEAL comes down, pulls me back up, and there's my swim buddy hanging onto the ladder. I'm saying, Jesus, okay, Sergeant Lampe, go sit there. We're going to find you another swim buddy.
No one's volunteering for that.
No one's volunteering. Yeah, you're the black cloud. I found the problem, Chief. I found the single constant in this scenario, and it's you.
Yeah. So the next thing I know, a PJ, Mike Brown, Mike had already passed pool harassment. He was on the other end. They went over and got Mike and brought him back over to be my swim buddy. So, quick story. And Mike had completed dive school except for the last 100-foot dive where he blew an eardrum. And so they wouldn't graduate him, and they wouldn't let him just do that last dive to graduate. So he got recycled and had to go back through the whole scuba school.
That is the worst. The only thing worse than that, and I really had a moment right here because during my indoc, I had already passed an event. It was on an eval and it was an odd number. And when you hear, I don't know how Mike Brown felt, but I know when I heard that instructor go, "We need one more. Love, get over here. You're going again." I bet Mike Brown was so mad at you.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I don't think he was a happy camper, considering what he went through previously.
Yeah,
he just got through, and now, I got to go with this dumbass combat controller that can't seem to hold on to a swim buddy. So here we go, and this time, the harassment was the same, but I tell you, Mike kept his cool, and him helping keep the cool, and we worked together as a team, and I'll be forever grateful to him, because I'm not sure another swim buddy outside his capability, I would have got there. So, he was a great swim buddy, and we went through a pool harassment, and then we ended up being swim buddies for the rest of the class. And then what was interesting is, you recall, I mentioned earlier on, I couldn't be a pararescueman. I couldn't apply because my eyesight wasn't good enough. Well, the requirement to go through scuba school at the underwater swimmer school was 20/20, but I didn't wear my glasses. It was 20/50, 20/60. And so on one of our night compass swims, we ran into a pack of Portuguese man-o-wars or whatever, the jellyfish.
Oh no.
That just stings like hell. And so a lot of us, took on a lot of, stings and stuff. And so we're, going through the medical boom, and the medical chief, the chief is reading through, going to give me some stuff. And then he's reading through my medical record. And he says, your eyesight, according to your medical records, is 20/50, 20/60. And he says, how come you're not wearing your glasses? I said, because I don't need them. He says, but you're supposed to have 20/20 vision to go through this school. I said, I understand, Chief, but before I came here, and this is just me being a bullshit artist, my OIC, my training NCO, basically wrote a letter to the Navy asking for an exception to policy, for this, because of the shortage of the career field, et cetera, et cetera. And they accepted it, and that's why I got orders. That's all bullshit.
So you hit them with the finesse. Just
Yeah.
basically to stay in school, you were like, all right, let's see if this happens. Just act like you own the place. Don't wait to be told differently. Be brief, be bold, be gone. That's a good one.
Yeah. And so he said, okay, you're good to go. Take this medicine, And that was, I'm sitting there after all I went through, especially pool harassment. Ain't no way you're going to kick me out because I can't see as good as everybody else. And then we graduated, and this is boom. So we're at the picnic. The instructors hosted a picnic, and the pararescuemen, I'm sorry, just couldn't let up. And
again, standard. Listen, none of this is surprising to me at all. Like you can't just be normal. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you can't. Come on, PJs. Can you just go to the picnic?
No.
Yeah, just have a hot dog and a hamburger, drink a few beers,
and shut up for once.
Please. No, but Mike Long, pararescueman, his dad was a captain in the Navy, I think, if I recall correctly. And of course, everybody'd heard the stories about Sweezy, and how bad he was, and et cetera. So, Mike Long goes up, Sweezy sitting on the picnic table, drinking a beer, I think eating a hot dog, and Mike Lund, hey, I understand you're really a badass. Are you really? Do you have that many boom. I bet you're not as bad as everybody says you are, et cetera, et cetera. And before he could get another word out of his mouth, Sweezy reached back and punched him right in the face, and Mike must have went 20 yards into the tree.
That's, you know what that is, Chief? He was trying to get his attention. Well, now you have it. So you know what? You get everything that you deserve. There's a common colloquialism, and the acronym is FAFO. And my friend did screw around and he found out. So you know what? That's what you get.
Yeah. And so, and you got to understand Sweezy. Sweezy was of Indian descent, Seminole Indian. And he wasn't a small guy. Neither was Mike Long. But Sweezy, I think, was 6'5", must have weighed, I want to say safely 225, maybe 230. Hard as a damn rock, and built like a brick shit house. And one punch, and Mike was resting at that tree he hit.
Well, there is one different, like, we're not allowed to punch the students anymore, but once again, make dog school great again. I wasn't
a student anymore. They graduated.
Oh, they graduated.
Game on.
So Chief, did that mean you were combat qualified? Were you going to get that ticket to 404 or what?
Well, so I get back, I come back from Key West, and of course, true story, I met a young lady on the flight back. She lived in Minneapolis, and we kind of hit it off. And so I land at Hurlburt, and she invited me. Her family had a cabin up at the lake, and I said, well, it was Memorial Day weekend. We graduated on the 25th of May, if I remember, 1972. And I think the weekend was the Memorial Day weekend, if I recall correctly. So I just figured, okay. So I get back and I tell Jimmy Charvette, hey, I'm going to take some leave. And he said, well, we need a phone number to put on your leave slip, et cetera, et cetera. So I called her up in Minneapolis, and she gave me a phone number. So, okay, I said, just for purposes, administrative, whatever I said. And so I jump on an airplane, fly to Minneapolis, and, meet her parents, and, we'll go out to dinner. That night, we're sitting around on the lake at the cabin, and the phone at the cabin rings. Okay.
There it is.
That's not good.
Yep.
Yeah, it's not good. And she's looking at me. I thought you said nobody would call. And he says, I know my parents aren't calling. Okay, well, let's answer it. Maybe it's just the wrong number. So I pick up the phone, and guess who it is? Chief Master Sergeant James Howell. And he says, Sergeant Lampe, you still a volunteer for Project 404? I said, yes, Chief. Well, then you need to get on the next airplane coming back to Hurlburt ASAP. And of course, my female companion was not a happy camper.
But I got to be honest with you. That's what the kids call a flex. When you hang that phone up and you're like, sorry, honey, I got to go to war.
America needs me.
America needs me.
Yeah. So begrudgingly, she basically volunteered to drop me off at the Minneapolis airport, and we never communicated again. I got back down to, get that to Hurlburt. And then, Chief Al says, okay, the guys there was a couple guys. I think one was Charlie Hudson and another guy were supposed to be going, there was a primary and alternate, both tech sergeants. And Charlie had gotten injured on a jump, and then the alternate had family issues or something like that. I don't recall, but he had nobody else, to turn to. And of course, I just got, blessed his phase 3, and so he says, okay, you need to report over to the Coin School, which now is the Special Operations, school. You need to attend an indoctrination class with a couple of folks that you're going to be traveling with over to Project 404. And that's where I met a guy named Jerry Ryan. He was an A1E pilot and actually had flown in the Sante rate as I think the number 2 A1E. And then a guy named Charlie Day, who was the mechanic, maintenance guy for T-28s. He'd been over there numerous times. So that's where I met those 2 gentlemen, and they ended up being damn good mentors, damn good leaders for a rookie like me going into Southeast Asia, being a one-man band. And that's what I was going into Laos. And quite the education, indoctrination. We flew over, you go to the embassy, you pretty much drop everything off, from your wallet. I don't recall if we had our ID cards or not. I don't think so. Because, there was only 7 of us, I think, up country working with the agency. And we were attached to the agency, and, pretty much like a military assistance program. My responsibility as a combat controller primarily was flight following and provide some ATC assistance as required for the 20 alternate, and periodically maybe do some communications with the gunships. And back there we had the Spooky, the Stinger, and the Spectre. I had all 3. And it was interesting 6 months. The first day I landed in 20 alternate, we took incoming, and 130 millimeters. It was, you just climbing off a porter, which Air America, you flew up from Vientiane into northern Laos, and they drop you off at the different locations you're working at. And as soon as we got off, we started taking income, and the porter whipped around and took off lickety split, and everybody's scattering. And I saw a bunker, and I said, I'm going to go to the bunker. Nobody's heading the bunker. I don't understand. And then one of the Filipino ground maintenance folks that worked for Air America, working on the 01 Ravenbirds, saw me heading, boom, and he, kind of jumping and waving, don't go in there, don't go in there. So, okay, I followed him. And then to come to find out, when they built the bunkers, the Cobras had made it home.
Oh, like the snake, the Cobra?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, pass. Yeah, Chief, I'm out. You know what? The dive school thing, never diving before, never jumping before with minimal training. I'm in for all that because I'm not that smart. I'm not. So I got a couple bugaboos. I don't like heights. I don't like loud noises. I faint when I see blood. I'm not good in pressure scenarios, and I really don't like snakes. So I think that's probably, the snakes would have just put me over the top.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was my first day in country. That was my first.
Absolutely, just unbelievable. Like, I don't even think unbelievable is the right word for it, Chief. That is an absolutely unbelievable turn of events.
Well, and Chief, I've read a few things from the guys that went into Laos during that time, and it sounds like it all lines up. They take your stuff, you're in civilian clothes, and they basically just tell you to go forth and conquer, and they drop you off. Good luck. And then Cobras.
Yeah.
Perfect. Best possible scenario.
Yeah, it was an experience. And then, I spent 6 months up there, roughly got in there in June, and then came out, I think, in January '73, when the peace accord, Paris Peace Accord conversations were going on. And I tell you, it was an education. I was very blessed to have that opportunity. It wouldn't necessarily be the way I would recommend you bring young troops just combat ready along.
Chief, I'm going to write that down. I think you got a point.
Yeah, but today, what you gentlemen do, what the career field's doing with AST and the pipeline, you guys wouldn't have a problem with that. Me, you heard my pipeline story. And so I had never landed a real airplane on an LZ. I'd never worked a real airstrike gunship. Never had worked a resupply, CDS drop, none of that. And never really ran long range communications other than what we did in the schoolhouse. So I had to pull back what knowledge I picked up in the pipeline and apply it to each of those incidents. So I had an opportunity to do a little ATC, did a ton of flight following, assisted with the AC 130 Inspector gunship a couple nights when we were up there. Worked with the Air America folks and helped out one of the agency reps that ran logistics, ran a couple resupply CDS drops, and then, I ran a few SAR missions. Actually, I think the second or third day, I met one of the Raven pilots. The Ravens would come in, land, and you'd rearm them. You'd fart them, for lack of term. Rearm them, refuel them, etc. And I met this Raven, hell of a pilot. Next thing I know, he gets shot down, and so now I'm running his SAR mission. It's christening on fire. Nobody taught me how to run a SAR mission, but I'm the focal point. Coordinating with the command post at, I think it was 7th Air Force at Non-Confidant, dealing with the embassy in Vientiane, and, all that. And
what rank were you at this time, Chief? Were you still an airman first class?
E5?
I was a buck sergeant then. I got promoted during that.
Wow.
I seriously feel significantly inadequate right now.
Inadequate? Yeah, I was gonna say inadequate.
Oh my gosh.
I'm sitting here, like, I'm trying not to make it about me, but like, I think a lot of the lack of training and all that other stuff, the reason I care about the pipeline and training so much is, I don't want to say I have a similar experience to you. It's similar, but I don't want to be like, I'm like Chief Lampe. That would be ridiculous.
I would make fun of you.
Yes, I would never say that. But Chief, I think there's a good place to kind of wrap. I think we already talked about doing a part 2. We're going to have to do a part 2, but we made it through your pipeline, so to speak, which was insane. And then they threw you into the fire into 404. And I think next time, as we go through we just shut down Afghanistan and we're moving into a peacetime, more or less. I think we're going to be really interested to hear how you navigated the rest of your, and I say unironically, illustrious career. At least a part 2. We might have to do a 3 or 4 parter, because this is incredible. And I really appreciate you coming on and sharing.
Now, let me throw just a couple things in on the Laos experiences.
Please.
Besides doing the combat control stuff, as I would call it, the core task, I worked with Charlie Day, the maintenance guy. So what I learned is how to load bombs, on T-28s, how to refuel them, how to load up 50 cal in the guns, how to basically check for chip lights, when you're running the T-28, etc. And it all came into play. I think it was the 5th of November. We were getting ready for the big General Vang Pao was going to try to retake the PDJ. And so we had just loaded up, I think 10 T-28s is all we could put on the ramp there at Longchin with, bombs and everything. And we were loading up the O1s with, their Willie P rockets and doing all that stuff. And then this, O1 was taxiing up with the Raven. And there was an electrical short that shot off all his Willie P rockets. And his Willie P rockets hit the air ops place. Fortunately, nobody was seriously injured, but it hit 3 of the T-28s that we had fully refueled and had just put the bombs on and put 50 cals. And so, Charlie Day and I were really the only 2 left on the ramp. So I had the Mark 107, and Charlie's running from his location. I jump in the Jeep, drive up, almost do like a UD pickup, with him in the Jeep. And we get up where the 3 T-28s are burning, and all that training I learned from Charlie of defusing the bombs, disconnecting the batteries because the batteries are up behind the T-28. You have to drop it down. Actually stopped, that training paid off. But of course, with Charlie as my teammate there, we were able to defuse all those bombs, which each of them were carrying 3 of them. That would have been, each aircraft was carrying 6. So 18 bombs we were able to defuse, disconnect the batteries, and then tow off with the Jeep. We jerry rigged, I think had a cargo strap in the back of the Jeep that we hooked to the nose wheel of the T-28 and towed that off so it wouldn't, eventually explode and have a chain reaction of the other 7 aircraft. So
just super casual, just no big deal. Just gonna you're just gonna put these bombs in the back of this Jeep and tow this aircraft away from the inherent mass casualty that we're about to have. Oh, okay.
Yeah. And of course, when it was all said and done, you get up the little mess tent that the agency had for their case officers, and they pulled out a case of beer and brought it over to Charlie and I, to thank us, because they were all sitting up above the airfield watching this fine show.
Disaster unfold. Watching this disaster unfold. Hey, these guys are dead. You know what? These guys live. Go ahead and get them some Budweisers.
Here's some PBR.
I meant to ask him. I said, "Were you guys taking bets on which plane was going to blow up first?" Or... So, okay, guys, I'll let you go. It's been a pleasure. Really enjoyed. Kind of nice reliving history, I guess, in a way.
Well, it's absolutely reliving history, and we really appreciate you joining us. For everybody that's out there that doesn't know, please go just Google Chief Mike Lampe, Lampe, and you're going to get a whole bunch of history, just a brief overview. But it's an incredible story, and we really appreciate you coming on and sharing just these stories that people don't hear about, because it's good for you, but it's also good for us too, and it helps give people a lot of insight too. I mean, I wrote it down just because one of the things that's going on in the Air Force right now is this whole multi-capable airman. People are worried about hey, I've got to learn how to do these jobs. Well, guess what? You had a combat controller loading bombs, defusing bombs, doing SAR. It's incredible. So we definitely want to have you, and Trent nailed it, have you on for a round 2, 3, 4, whatever, just story time, because I love this. So again, appreciate everybody joining in, checking us out, and we're out here. Thanks.
Thanks, Chief.
Appreciate it.